These age-old walls have endured through the ages, silently observing centuries of history, conflict, and culture. In today's video, we're counting down 15 amazing ancient walls that are still standing today. The Flodden Wall. The Flodden Wall, which still stands today amid the bustling streets of Edinburgh in Scotland, offers a quiet reminder of a city on edge in the 16th century. Completed in 1560, this defensive structure was built in response to a real, though unfulfilled fear. After Scotland's loss at the Battle of Flodden in 1513, in which King James IV was killed, Edinburgh's leaders faced another potential attack by the English, who had just defeated the Scottish army. As a result, they decided to build a formidable wall to protect their city. Standing 24 feet tall, the wall once encircled an area of 40 acres, home to around 10,000 people. Although the wall's original purpose was to defend against a feared English invasion that never materialized, it did become a key feature in the city's defenses during the turbulent times of the 16th century. The walls withstood various efforts to breach the city, including the use of a massive cannon, Monsmeg, which was deployed to destroy enemy positions outside the wall. Built of stone, it was designed not only to be a defensive barrier, but a symbol of the city's resilience. The walls were a physical manifestation of a city that was trying to maintain its independence and safeguard its people from external threats. However, the wall's usefulness began to wane over the centuries. By the 18th, Edinburgh had grown beyond its old boundaries. The wall, once a critical defense, became an obstruction to the city's expansion. Roads were built over portions of it, and new buildings like the University of Edinburgh's Old College were constructed atop what had once been a protective barrier. Well, despite the wall's gradual decay, remnants of it still stand today as protected monuments offering a tangible link to Edinburgh's past. The most well-known fragment, though, is the stretch surrounding Greyfriars Kirkyard, where it remains a distinctive feature of the city's landscape. The Walls of Stan. The Walls of Stan stand as an example of centuries of defense and strategic importance on the Dalmatian coast of Croatia. Stretching over 5 kilometers, this imposing fortification once protected the city of Stan and its smaller neighbor, Maliastin. Built in the 14th century during the reign of the Republic of Ragasum, the Walls of Stan were primarily constructed to safeguard the valuable salt pans in the region. Salt was a vital commodity for the Republic, and it contributed to the wealth and economic power of Dubrovnik. To protect this resource from threats like the Ottoman Empire, which had expanded into their territory, the walls were erected to create secure perimeters around the two towns. The design of the walls was as much about practicality as it was about visual impact. With 40 towers and a massive fortress perched on top, the walls were an imposing feature of the landscape. The construction of the walls used local limestone, making them blend in seamlessly. Over time, as the Republic maintained and reinforced these walls, they began to symbolize not just military protection, but also the wealth and prosperity of the city. Austrian authorities who took control of the region repurposed the materials to build schools, public buildings, and even a triumphal arch in honor of the visit by Austrian Emperor in 1884. Well, despite the setbacks, the walls of Stanton continued to stand, albeit in a diminished state. But one of the biggest threats to the wall came not from human hands, but from the forces of nature. In 1996, a devastating earthquake caused extensive damage. The destruction, while tragic, sparked a restoration effort that has since brought back the walls to life. Today, visitors can walk along them, exploring the towers and taking in the views of the sea below. The fortification, once built to ward off invaders, now attract a different kind of crowd, tourists eager to trace the steps of history while enjoying the stunning beauty of the Croatian coastline. The Walls of Avia. The Walls of Avia are a reminder of that city's rich medieval history. Stretching over 1.5 miles, they stand as one of the most well-preserved examples of medieval fortifications in Europe. Built at the end of the 11th century, they were a necessary defense against the threat posed by the Moorish armies during a turbulent time in Spanish history. The construction began around October, driven by the need to protect that growing Christian population. As they pushed further southward, reclaiming land that had long been a battleground between Islamic caliphates of the south and the Christian kingdoms in the north. The province, once a desolate no-man's land between these two forces, had begun to see a repopulation effort by the northern kingdoms. However, this area remained fraught with tension, leading to the construction of a mighty fortification to shield the people within. Made primarily of granite, the walls are pretty thick, about 9.8 feet in many sections, and rise to an impressive height of about 39 feet. These walls, reinforced by 88 semicircular towers, were built with practical defense in mind. The towers were placed strategically to allow for surveillance and defense from attackers. Despite the ravages of time, though, they've remained remarkably intact. The layout includes an area of roughly 77 acres, enough to protect a thriving town from the uncertainty of that era. The walls also stand in stark contrast to the growth and modernization of the city around them. Even today, visitors can walk along the sections of the wall and imagine the medieval soldiers who once patrolled them. The history of these walls has been recognized and preserved, earning the city a UNESCO World Heritage status in 1985. The Aurelian Walls. The Aurelian Walls have stood in Rome for over 1,700 years. They were constructed between February and February during the reign of Emperor Aurelian. These walls were a direct response to the escalating threats Rome faced during the turbulent 3rd century. They were more than a mere line of defense. They marked a turning point in Roman history when even the Eternal City could no longer rely on its reputation and army. By the 3rd century, Rome's expansion had far outstripped the boundaries of its earlier fortifications, the Servian Wall, which dated back to the 4th century BC. For centuries, Rome remained unfortified, its citizens secured in the Pax Romana and the strength of the Roman legions. However, a combination of internal strife and external invasions revealed a new vulnerability. Emperor Aurelian commissioned the walls as a protective measure, not just for the city's population, but also to secure Rome's role as the heart of the empire. The walls enclosed roughly 3,500 acres of urban and rural land, including the famous Seven Hills of Rome, the Campus Mauritius, and parts of the Trastevere district across the Tiber River. The walls stretch about 12 miles, and they enclose an area of about 5.3 square miles. The original structure was 11 feet thick and stood 26 feet high, with square watchtowers positioned every 97 feet. Modifications under emperors like Maxentius and Honorius doubled the height of certain sections to 52 feet, enhancing that defensive capability. But by May, the circuit included over 380 towers, 18 main gates, and numerous small postern gates. They were made of a blend of lime, volcanic ash, and rubble that was set into a solid mass. This material was not only strong, but also resistant to the elements. The walls continued to define Rome's boundaries until the 19th century, even during the unification of Italy in 1870, when Rome was captured by the Kingdom of Italy. The breach at Porta Pia underscored the enduring significance of those ancient defenses. The Walls of Constantinople. The walls of Constantinople, made to shield the city from invaders and protect its inhabitants, remain one of the most remarkable achievements of antiquity. Built over several centuries, these defenses reflect a layered history of construction, innovation, and strategic ingenuity. Though the city they were built to defend has transformed into modern-day Istanbul, the wall still stands as a powerful symbol of resourcefulness and adaptability. The initial phases of construction began under Emperor Constantine the Great in the 4th century AD, when he declared Byzantium the new capital of the Roman Empire. This first wall was a single-layered structure reinforced with regularly spaced towers. Now its design offered a sturdy defense against military threats of its time. But as Constantinople grew, so too did the need for more sophisticated defenses. A second, more elaborate set of fortifications was constructed farther west, known today as the Theodosian Walls. This system consisted of 3 layers, an outer wall, an inner wall, and a massive moat. Together, they created one of the most complex defense systems ever built in antiquity. The inner wall was about 40 feet high and 15 feet thick, and it was interspersed with imposing towers spaced about 80 feet apart. Behind it stood the outer wall, slightly shorter but equally robust. The moat, measuring up to 60 feet across in some areas, was often flooded to add yet another obstacle to potential invaders. The walls proved their worth repeatedly. They successfully withstood sieges from an array of attackers, including the Avars, the Arabs, the Bulgars, and the Rus. For over 1,000 years, these fortifications made Constantinople one of the most impregnable cities in the world. Even the advent of gunpowder siege cannons in the 15th century posed challenges, though it ultimately contributed to the city's fall to the Ottomans in 1453. By the 19th century, some sections were dismantled to make way for more modern infrastructure. However, substantial portions survived, and restoration efforts have been ongoing since the 1980s. The durability of the wall raises an important question. How could such ancient structures last so long when so many others have crumbled? Well, part of the answer lies in the design. The staggered layers of the walls and towers distributed the weight and absorbed impacts, reducing the risk of collapse. The builders also employed a method of alternating brick and stone layers, creating a bit of flexibility in the structure that allowed it to withstand any seismic activity. And finally, ongoing maintenance and repairs performed over the centuries helped ensure its survival. The Walls of Babylon. The Walls of Babylon are among the most legendary fortifications in ancient history. Built in Mesopotamia, they once surrounded Babylon, the capital of Babylonia, symbolizing the city's power. Though only fragments remain today, these walls continue to fascinate historians and archaeologists for their scale and endurance. Most famously associated with King Nebuchadnezzar II, these walls were part of a long tradition of fortification in Babylon. Earlier defenses were built by King Hammurabi in the 18th century BC, but Nebuchadnezzar expanded them into these 3 concentric walls. Ancient accounts like those of Herodotus claim the walls were over 300 feet high and 25 feet thick, though those figures are likely exaggerated. Even so, the walls were undeniably massive and formidable. Constructed primarily of mud bricks that were kiln-fired for durability, these walls were practical and beautiful. Key sections like the Ishtar Gate were adorned with glazed blue bricks and intricate reliefs of lions, dragons, and bulls, showcasing Babylon's cultural and religious identity. The Euphrates River, which flowed through Babylon, was spanned by walls with metal gates to prevent invaders from entering by water. Watchtowers and multiple inner walls created layers of defense, making the city nearly impregnable. Despite their strength, though, the walls were breached by Cyrus the Great of Persia in May. Unable to overcome the defenses, Cyrus diverted to the Euphrates, lowering the water level and allowing his troops to march into the city along the riverbed. Today, fragments of the walls remain, preserved by the region's arid climate and the durability of kiln-fired bricks. Modern reconstructions, though, sometimes criticized for historical inaccuracies, keep the legacy of Babylon's walls alive, reminding us of the ingenuity of the ancient world. The city walls of Carcassonne. The city walls of Carcassonne are a stunning example of medieval architecture and one of the best preserved fortified cities in the world. Perched on a hill overlooking the Haute River in southern France, these walls have protected the city for over 2 millennia, blending Roman, Visigothic, and medieval construction techniques. The walls date back to the Gallo-Roman period, with the Romans building a castellum in the 3rd century CE. Over time, the Visigoths and later rulers expanded and reinforced the walls, adding semicircular towers and gateways. By the 12th century, under the Trincavel family, Carcassonne became a thriving medieval stronghold. The city's strategic importance led to conflict during the Albigensian Crusade in 12/00/2009. After falling to the Crusaders, Carcassonne was annexed by the French crown in December, prompting the addition of a second outer wall. This double-layer defense, featuring rounded towers and arrow slits, made the city nearly impregnable. Built from local limestone and sandstone, the walls have endured centuries of warfare and weathering. Regular maintenance and periodic rebuilding kept them strong, but by the 19th century, they were in disrepair. Thanks to the efforts of historian Prosper Mérimée and architect Eugene Viollet-le-Duc, the walls were restored, preserving Carcassonne as a symbol of medieval Europe. Today, the walls stretch nearly 2 miles and feature 52 towers. Designated UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1997, Carcassonne draws visitors from around the world, offering a glimpse into a time when cities were built to withstand both war and time. The Walls of Jericho. The ancient city of Jericho, located near the Jordan River in the West Bank, holds an unparalleled place in human history. It's known as the oldest continually inhabited city on Earth. Its roots stretch us back nearly 14,000 years, predating the construction of the pyramids and many of history's other great civilizations. The Walls of Jericho were born from necessity. The Natuthian people, a semi-nomadic hunter-gatherer society, were among the first to recognize the potential of that lush oasis. Drawn to the area's fertile soil, natural springs, and proximity to trade routes along the Jordan River, these early settlers transitioned from a nomadic existence to a more permanent way of life. The city's resource-rich farmland, dependable water supplies, and a prime strategic location made it a target for rival groups. To safeguard their settlement, the people undertook the ambitious task of constructing walls, a first in human history. Built around 8000 BCE during the pre-Pottery Neolithic Age, these walls stand as the oldest known urban fortifications ever discovered. Rising to a height of about 12 to 13 feet and measuring about 6 feet thick, the walls were constructed from locally sourced clay and stone. Surrounding them was a ditch 27 feet wide and 9 feet deep carved into solid bedrock. Now that was a monumental feat of engineering for the time. The significance of Jericho's walls extend beyond their function. They're deeply entwined with the city's culture and legacy. The most famous account of these walls comes from the Bible, where they're said to have collapsed during the Israelite conquest of Canaan. According to the story, the Israelites marched around the walls for 7 days, blowing trumpets and shouting until the walls came down. This tale, recorded in the book of Joshua, has cemented Jericho's walls as an enduring image in religious and cultural narratives. However, archaeological evidence complicates this story. Excavations at Tel Es Sultan, the site identified as biblical Jericho, revealed that the city experienced multiple cycles of destruction and rebuilding over thousands of years, but no settlement has been conclusively linked to the time of the biblical account. Scholars now view the story as more symbolic than historical, reflecting the culture and political context of later periods. The construction of the walls marked the transition from survival to stability, from wandering to permanence. Even today, the ruins of these ancient walls offer valuable insights into the ingenuity and resilience of our ancestors, as well as their ability to adapt to the changes of their environment. Jericho remains a living city, home to roughly 20,000 people who carry on its legacy as the oldest continually inhabited settlement. Though much of its ancient walls now lie in ruins, their presence continues to spark the curiosity of archaeologists, historians, and travelers. They serve as a bridge between the past and the present, reminding us of the enduring power of human stories and the ingenuity that's driven our species forward. The Theodosian Wall. Built between April 2008 and April under Emperor Theodosius II, the Theodosian Walls are a lasting symbol of the Byzantine Empire's ambition and strength. These walls, which still stand in modern-day Istanbul, were designed to protect Constantinople from growing threats. Today, they offer a fascinating glimpse into the past and raise an intriguing question. How have they endured for over 1,600 years? Well, the walls were engineered with one clear purpose: to make Constantinople nearly impossible to conquer. Military architects and engineers created a two-tiered defense system. The inner wall, made of limestone and red brick, stood 36 to 46 feet high and over 15 feet thick. After an earthquake damaged the original structure, an outer wall and a deep moat were added. Defensive towers, some as tall as 66 feet, provided clear sight lines for spotting invaders and strategic positions for archers and soldiers to defend the city from all angles. The secret to the wall's longevity lies in construction. They were built with high-quality materials like limestone, brick, and marble, and they were designed to withstand seismic activity too. They were remarkably durable. The defensive towers also played a critical role, serving as a focal point for repairs and maintenance over the centuries. As the surrounding area developed, buildings and modern infrastructure provided additional protection against the elements. Today, large sections of the Theodosian walls still stand, including the iconic Adornakapi Gate, a reminder of Constantinople's strategic importance and the ingenuity of its builders. The Great Zimbabwe Walls. In southeastern Zimbabwe, the Great Zimbabwe Walls stand as a powerful reminder of one of Africa's greatest ancient civilizations. Built by the Shona people between the 11th and 15th centuries, this incredible site was once the heart of a thriving kingdom that lasted for over 300 years. Today, these walls are constructed with remarkable precision, continue to inspire awe and curiosity, and offer a window into the past, and they raise questions about the durability of ancient building techniques. The walls were built over several centuries with sections added or expanded as needed, and what makes them truly extraordinary is their construction. They were built without mortar, relying entirely on the careful stacking of large granite stones. The Shona people quarried the granite from nearby hills, shaping and arranging the stones with such precision that the walls have remained solid and stable for over 500 years. The secret to their longevity lies in this ingenious construction method. The tightly stacked stones create a structure resilient to wear and tear even as they shifted slightly over time. The granite itself is a tough and durable material, and that's played a key role too. Well, despite centuries of exposure to rain, heat, and wind, the stone has eroded slowly, helping the walls endure. However, the site hasn't been immune to damage. In the late 19th century, European explorers and treasure hunters plundered the area, destroying parts of the wall in their search for gold. Well, despite that, much of the structure remains intact, an example of the skill and foresight of the Shona builders. The walls of Dubrovnik. The city of Dubrovnik, historically known as Ragusa, was founded as a defensive settlement, especially after refugees from nearby towns like Epidaurus sought refuge from invaders. From the 8th century, the city's first limestone forts began to rise, setting the foundation for what would later become a powerful city-state. The walls around Dubrovnik were essential for the city's survival and growth. They were built over centuries from the 9th to the 17th. Initially, the defensive walls were simple structures. However, as Dubrovnik expanded and gained prominence, its defenses grew more elaborate. By the 13th century, the walls began to take their current shape, enclosing the city in an unbroken chain of stone, with numerous towers, bastions, and fortifications added to bolster defense. The wall's thickness varies, but in some sections they are nearly 20 feet thick, designed to resist both siege tactics and the wear and tear of time. But the most impressive section of the walls is the section surrounding the harbor, where their land is less defensible. This area includes 3 circular towers for quadrangular towers and several bastions, each carefully placed to create a nearly impenetrable defense. The largest of these fortifications is the St. John's Fortress, which was critical for the city's protection. The walls of Dubrovnik stretch over 6,300 feet. And with more than 120 cannons strategically placed along the walls, Dubrovnik was well equipped to defend itself against any naval attacks. The Kumbalgar Fort Walls. The walls of the Kumbalgar Fort, one of the most extraordinary and least recognized fortifications in India, have been standing tall for over 5 centuries. Built during the 15th century, these walls were part of an ambitious defense system constructed under the reign of Maharana Kumbha, the ruler of the Muir. The purpose was to protect the fort, which housed not only a royal palace, but also more than 300 temples. Spanning over 22 miles, the wall is the second longest continuous wall in the world after China's Great Wall. Unlike the crumbling ruins of many ancient fortifications, this wall is still remarkably well preserved, running through valleys and clinging to mountain ridges. In some sections, it stretches up to 49 feet high and is 49 feet thick, making it an imposing barrier against any would-be invaders. How has this wall withstood the centuries of natural wear and tear, political changes, and time? Well, the answer lies in both its construction and its location. The thick, strong design has resisted erosion, while its placement in the terrain of the Arvali Range has made it less susceptible to attacks over the years. The wall's significance and scale have earned it a spot as part of the UNESCO World Heritage Site designation, known as the Hill Forts of Rajasthan. Though somewhat off the beaten path, the fort and its towering walls are becoming an increasingly popular destination for travelers who seek out historical sites with a rich legacy. The Walls of Xi'an. The Xi'an City Wall is one of China's most significant historical and architectural landmarks. It was built during the early 14th century. This wall was part of the defense system of Xi'an, which was the then capital of the Ming dynasty. The project was advised by Shuzheng, a sage who recommended that before establishing his empire, the emperor should build a strong wall and a stockpile of food. Following this advice, the emperor laid a foundation for what would become one of the most impressive city walls in history. Originally constructed from tamped earth, this wall was later reinforced with bricks in the 16th century to provide additional strength and durability. Over time, the fortifications were expanded and refined with features like drainage systems and crenels for shooting projectiles. Today, the wall stands as a striking and well-preserved example of ancient military engineering. The wall's dotted with about 98 ramparts spaced about every 400 feet, each with its own sentry building to monitor any potential threats, and the ramparts were strategically placed like this to prevent enemies from scaling the wall. Soldiers could then use them to defend the city from any direction. The 4 main gates of the wall were the only entry points into the city, and they were heavily fortified to withstand attacks. As Xi'an grew over the years, the wall's importance shifted from military defense to a historical symbol, marking the boundaries of the city's ancient districts. In 1983, The wall underwent a significant refurbishment to ensure its preservation, and since, it's been recognized as a national historical and cultural unit. Moat and walls of the Forbidden City. At the heart of Beijing lies the Forbidden City, a breathtaking palace complex that has stood the test of time. Built between 1406 and 1420 under the Ming Dynasty's Yongle Emperor, this grand structure served as the imperial home and political center for Chinese emperors for over 500 years. Its wall and moat were not just practical defenses, but also symbols of the emperor's supreme authority and the sacred divide between his world and the outside. The Forbidden City's most striking features are its massive walls and surrounding moat. The walls, made of sturdy red bricks, stand 33 feet tall and stretch over 2 miles. The color red, symbolizing prosperity and power, dominates the complex, reinforcing the emperor's divine status. The moat is nearly 180 feet wide and 3 miles long and adds an extra layer of protection, making invasions nearly impossible. And it emphasizes the separation between the emperor's realm and the rest of the world. These fortifications were more than just physical barriers, they were statements of imperial power. The walls and moat created an imposing boundary, ensuring only those with permission could enter. Over time, the Forbidden City became more than a royal residence. It was the heart of the Chinese governance and a symbol of the empire's strength. The durability of the structures here is an example of the quality of materials and craftsmanship that were used. Walls were built with carefully selected bricks, while the palace's iconic wooden architecture, featuring intricate dugong brackets, showcased both structural integrity and artistic skills. But the Forbidden City's design went beyond practicality. It was a cosmic representation of the emperor's place at the center of the universe. The palace symbolized the earth, surrounded by walls, and a moat like the heavens, reflecting the emperor's divine right to rule. Sacsayhuaman. Perched above Cusco in Peru, Sacsayhuaman stands as one of the most impressive examples of ancient Incan construction. Built in the 15th century, likely under Sapa Inca Pachacuti and his successors, this fortified complex was once a part of a larger citadel that dominated the landscape. Today, its massive stone walls remain as an example of the Incas' extraordinary engineering ability. Now, most striking feature here is the precisely cut stone walls. Made of irregularly shaped stones weighing several tons, the walls fit together so tightly that no mortar was needed. The stones are arranged in 3 terrace layers, each custom shaped to fit perfectly. The precision here is so remarkable that not even a piece of paper can slide between them. But the purpose of Sacsayhuaman is still debated, while some believe it was a fortress or military stronghold. Others argue it served as a ceremonial site. Its position and alignment with the landscape suggests that it may have played a role in Incan cosmology, reflecting their deep connection to the land. Much of the complex was destroyed by the Spanish during their conquest of the Inca Empire in the 16th century. They repurposed many stones for their own buildings in Cusco, but the massive size of the remaining ones made them difficult to move. As a result, the lower walls here have endured, standing strong despite the centuries of weathering and seismic activity. They were built at an altitude of over 12,000 feet. Sacsayhuaman faced challenges like high-altitude erosion and earthquakes, yet the walls remain remarkably intact. The methods used allowed the walls to flex and shift without collapsing, showcasing the builders' ingenuity. In 1983, it was designated as a UNESCO World Heritage Site for its cultural significance, and today, it draws visitors from around the world, offering a glimpse into the brilliance of the Inca civilization. Thanks for exploring with me, everybody. I'll see you next time.